Hi, I'm Sharni Brodesky and I'm a therapist at the place, and one of the areas that I specialise in is helping parents who make Aliyah with their kids to support their families. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about Aliyah and their responsibilities and where parents can fall into the trap of feeling over-responsible and taking on like a kind of mindset that's overwhelming, and why that sometimes happens, and how to kind of be more effective with Aliyah and helping your kids and living a more happy and healthy life. Because even though as parents we're always responsible, the difference when we step into being over-responsible is it's actually a nervous system response. So this talk is also going to be looking through the framework of how our nervous systems work and how we can actually help ourselves through our nervous systems, also to navigate life in Israel a little bit better. So when we make Aliyah, it's a massive step, and we have a lot of, there might be a lot of excitement and a lot of hope and a lot of also overwhelm, maybe fears, and all of that is like, you know, moving country, it's kind of manageable. When we add the extra load, I suppose, of taking on our families and our children's well-being with us, we can feel quite flooded with the amount of, it's not only responsibilities, but issues that come up and things we need to navigate. So we've left a stable life where we know what's going on to something unknown. We don't quite yet know how the friends are going to go. They're going to make friends. Are they going to manage in school? How we're going to make out financial ends meet? How's the settlement? How you know your child in their daily life. You don't know how they're going to cope with such a big adjustment, with loss, with many things that can come up. So that's that. Those things are our responsibility, and we come geared with, you know, communication skills, how certain tools work within the country and culture that we know. If there's conflict, if we need to advocate for our kids, we know what to do, who to talk to, how it's going to go. And when you're coming into a new country and you come to Israel, there are different tools that we need to somehow develop, and some of them involving language. You know, sometimes we need to resolve things in Hebrew or speak with someone who doesn't understand us well. And culture in general can be quite a big change that we need actually new tools to deal with, especially when it comes to, you know, the schools, when it comes to education, health, socializing, doctors. That, you know, it's I've countless cases where people come out crying from simple interactions with a doctor or going to some sort of appointment, you know, why did these things happen that get us really worked up? And so really that's where my interest at the moment is looking into the nervous system and seeing what really happens. Firstly, when I've got a few examples of when I arrived in Israel, just to highlight some of the stories. My child had, say, an event on at school. I turn up, there was a child that hadn't gone to school, another child that hadn't gone to school came with me, and I was told you can't enter with that child can't enter, there's not enough room for siblings. They were not, it was clearly said on the invitation, no family to send them to, no husband in the area, child waiting for me to come in, not being allowed, what do I, you know. So one story, like freezing, I froze. Another situation, going to a all-girls school, didn't realise this, again, event where it was only for the mothers. I didn't read the invitation, I was just new in the country, brought the husband and the brother. Boys, what are they doing here? Can't be here. All of us were all excited to see the performance, but plans were to change. And in the end, like what can happen to a parent is you can feel I messed up, feel really out of control, you feel really upset, you feel really shocked, you're confused, you didn't know, and oh, you should have known. And so the feelings of it's like guilt or you know, I've messed this up for my child, or they're going to be embarrassed, or maybe they're not going to be happy, it's because of me, and I've taken them away from their environment, can start to be activated, all those kinds of thoughts. And when we go into over-responsibility, and it's actually one of the nervous system responses. So we have a variety of nervous system responses. We all know fight, we all know flight, and freeze. And fawn is the fourth one, which is sort of people-pleasing, trying to make everyone happy, being over-responsible, trying to fix things, worrying about things, having intrusive thoughts, lying in bed, not being able to sleep. It's when your thoughts going around and round, and your brain is trying to kind of fix and solve all the problems, or catastrophic thinking, which is even worse, and seeing all the things that are going to go wrong. It's really all part of the fawn response. So it's actually the nervous system being activated. It's not you being a good parent thinking of all these things and being over-responsible. It's actually you're taking yourself away from your rest and digest state, where you can actually think and plan and problem solve and communicate. And you've gone into survival mode. You've gone into, how am I going to make this okay for everyone? And you're trying to fix it. Now, when we try to go into Israeli society, and with the value of, when we go into conflictual situations, or when we have needs, we need to get them, we're trying to get something done, and we have like a fawn type, our customer service society, in the way that like Western society values being kind, being nice, being polite, things work in a certain way, and that's how they operate. One of those values is being a nice person, a good person, and when we have that expectation on ourselves and on others, and it's also kind of part of the fawn response, it's kind of like we just, the way we get things done is being nice and making sure people like us, or we're accepted, and then we can get things done. It's not also always genuine. It comes from often just like a learnt behaviour or a survival response. I'm not saying that we're not good people. I'm saying when we are activated, and we're going to talk about how we can recognise when we're in this response, and then what we do, and why it doesn't always work in Israel. In Israel, they don't, that's not a value, and it's not necessarily the first response of the nervous system. There's fight here, there's freeze here, there's flight. So fight, we know that's arguing, maybe it's dispelling some of the tension through bipping a little bit too often on the roads, or having just a louder tone of voice, or sometimes being a little bit confrontative and direct in the way they talk. And the flight is when you get like sort of taking the doctor's office and shoot out really quickly. It's really like it's being distractible. It's not being so present. Things aren't so important that you want to be important, but they need to get things done. A lot of the value here is being efficient and getting things done. Well, it's not always efficient, but getting things done. There's freeze. It's freeze. It looks often, it could be like, also could look a bit like depression, stuckness, not being able to get things done, feeling stuck really, in a certain sense. And fawn here, I don't believe that it's not, so obviously it's a human response, but it's actually one, to me it's they feel it, like everyone, they feel the sense of like, oh, but they don't show it, okay, like, so because showing it is not part of the net, like it's not, I don't know why, but it's like it only comes up in Israelis really, say in generalizing, when they see tears, when they see it's really a problem for you, or you're really distressed, or you're really in despair. It's like then they'll try to fix, then they'll, but until then they won't show it, and it's not an effective strategy to expect it. And once you expect it and you get put into a fight response because you've expected things to go into a certain way, it's also not an effective strategy here, especially not for your kids. So it's always more effective to kind of be in your rest and digest state, and to try to actually get a reflect on what's going on, and try to do what's the next best thing for you. Because being over responsible, you're always thinking of the worst case scenarios, and they may be being impulsive. Sometimes you can't set good boundaries with your kids because you're like worried about them. You've done something wrong, and so you're maybe struggling. What fawning response looks like is not setting good boundaries with your kids, perhaps, or it can look like I said, like the intrusive thoughts and not getting enough sleep, or feeling very overwhelmed with all these responsibilities, and being hard to concentrate. And so it's really important to notice that when we're in that response, just to say to yourself, oh, I'm in the fawn response. That's where I am right now. Locate it. Give yourself a name, because that already calms the nervous system down. Also, if you're in the fawn response, you might find yourself a little bit more dysregulated because you're cutting off from from your deeper needs, and you're just trying to, please other people, and so you're putting other people's first, or their needs first, and you're not taking care of your own needs. So it can also lead to, more eruptions, emotional outbursts. So it's really important that we become aware when we're getting into that response. It might look like that gripping the gripping feelings of guilt, or the overwhelm in the body, where sort of recognize maybe that if there's a certain tension in your body. So after we recognize that we're there and we can identify it, and often it's somewhere that we've known, where it's a place that we're very familiar with, in the face of uncertainty and when we feel out of control. It's like one of those responses. One more problem with it, though, is that when you act out in your protective strategies, like, okay, I'm going to let the kids do what they want because they've already had a hard enough time because of me, and then they act out, it reinforces that you're not a good, that the part of you that felt you've already done the wrong thing or messed up, when you see your kids then do more of that because you haven't set a boundary, it reinforces that original feeling inside, which is like messed up. So, first thing is, recognize you're in the state. Second part of it is being able to kind of pull yourself. It's like, imagine that when your mind is going into an overwhelming mush of emotions and thoughts, like it's going round and round like a washing machine, like all these responsibilities, what I'm going to do, seeing the futures, seeing your future, we're not going to make enough money, whatever. It's like, get yourself out of that washing machine. So it's like, you see it going around, and so step out of it, like helicopter out. So notice where you are. That takes work. That takes a little bit of effort to kind of recognize what it even looks like, what it feels like, to sort of slow yourself down enough to recognize when the fawn response comes up in you. Second of all, switch your, I always think of like as if you're holding an imaginary flashlight, you point it towards you and you do a bit of internal checking. What's my body doing? What's going on when I'm having this fawn response? Start to be curious about it. So then I say glance towards your mind. I don't mean get sucked back into it, but sort of notice the thoughts from a distance. So you can watch them go, oh, I'm letting everybody down, or everybody else can do it better than me, or whatever. My kids are suffering, whatever. They're not as happy as I hoped they would be. So you watch the thoughts come up and recognize what thoughts you have when you're there. Number 4, you again, I think it's really important just to restate, this is what I do when I'm in fawn, and this is and maybe how do I feel? Maybe I feel like I'm drowning, I can't breathe properly, suffocating. Then we validate, we go, wow, that's a lot. There's a lot on your plate. Look at those thoughts. Look at what your body's doing. Look at how you're feeling like you're drowning. Whoa, that's really intense. Let's just take a minute and take a breath. Because just acknowledging it, and with some compassion, like we talked about validation before, is just really important to give to yourself at the moment, because you're in a nervous system response. You've cut off from the parts of your brains that actually can part of your brain that can actually, you know, help you be effective, and you're like in this kind of response where it's really not as effective as you really could be. It's trying to protect you. Thank you very much, nervous system response, for trying to protect me and have some relief through your breath. There's other things you can do, and we're just going to start there. The next thing, which is so important for someone in that response, is just to figure out what's your next step. Just one step. You're here and now. This is not, you know, we don't have to solve all the problems of all the future possibilities. We're just like bringing ourselves back to the present moment. What is our next step? And that takes a load off the plate, because you realize I have something to do. I'm back in control. I am re-empowered myself, and I've validated myself. I've re-empowered myself. I've got what to do. You're back stabilized. And then you can remind yourself finally of 2 reasons why you made Aliyah and why you came to Israel, and why you're really happy. You know, why you really love being here. Because I know you're here for a reason, and so do you. So 2 reasons why you're here, and that's my tips of the day. So I hope you found that helpful.
Thank you, Sharni.
Thank you very much. Yes.